What are the best investments for 2025? That's what we will discuss in this video, with some interesting developments at the moment that could turn out well or poorly, including, on one hand, inflated stock markets, artificial intelligence, and also the hype of crypto, as well as real estate markets that have risen enormously. On the other hand, Mr. Trump may mean a lot for American stocks, or maybe not, which could make the bubble only grow larger and possibly burst in 2025. And of course, there is still that inflation that keeps persisting and seems to be rising higher. In any case, it is still not under control, so what will the entire government do about it? My name is Jorik Vermeulen. I am an entrepreneur and investor with our company Happy Investors. We help people with simple investing for financial freedom. I became financially free at the age of 30, not only through investing but also through entrepreneurship. In this video, we will talk about a number of interesting investments for the year 2025, which I believe, and for which I also apply my own strategy to increase the returns. Before we talk about 7 interesting best investments for the coming year, let's take a step back. What investments are there? Now, on our channel, you will also find many beginner explanation videos about starting to invest and such, so I will go through it faster in this video. Of course, you have different types of investments from low to high risk, such as bonds. Up to exchange-traded funds or ETFs, we have real estate, we have stocks, we have P2P lending, we have crowdfunding, and for higher risk, we have, for example, crypto, but also private equity and venture capital as examples. I also have an investment in a kind of venture capital-like investment in a relatively small startup company in the Netherlands, a software company for the real estate market. Of course, technology, software, high risk, but it is also venture capital. That means relatively low chance of success. And yes, if it becomes a success, then it is really a success. But I have mentally written it off and expect to get €0 from it, so it can only be a pleasant surprise if it turns out well. But venture capital and also private equity do not seem to me to be the best investment for this coming year. Not only because it is not meant for most beginner investors or even advanced investors, but also because everything is increasing, so valuations of companies and also of real estate keep getting more and more expensive, and that cannot continue. There is simply such a thing as an average. And from time to time, when markets are overvalued, they return to the average. That is always how it goes. And there is no exception based on our 100 years of stock market. So let's keep that in mind for potential investments. First, another piece for a step back and use your game. Think about different ways, short-term versus long-term investing. In the short term, you can actually always find opportunities, but in the long term as well. But it is a very different game if you are going to invest in the short term, for example, day trading or investing in crypto in the short term, than with the long term. But in both cases, you need measures and strategies to limit your risk. In the short term, that is more difficult than in the long term, but you should always limit your risk. So don't aim for the highest possible return for this year, but go for a decent return that you can also maintain on average in the long term so that you can achieve a high average return. Then we have lump sum versus dollar cost averaging versus market timing. I have also taken this into account for this video on 7 potentially best investments for the coming year. And I personally have more of the idea of lump sum, which means investing everything at once. Suppose you want to start investing now and you have a lot of money. I would not apply lump sum in the stock market or invest everything at once because everything has risen significantly. Personally, if I were to start again this coming year, I would choose dollar cost averaging, which is, for example, the monthly contribution or periodic investment, or maybe even a bit of market timing and waiting until the markets have declined a bit. And the simplest way to start, if you have a smaller amount, is to just invest a small monthly amount, which also reduces your risk. Just pay attention to having low and high risk. Depending on your knowledge and strategy, but also your personality, your mindset, your way of thinking, and of course your experience in the markets, you should choose for lower or potentially higher returns. If you are watching this video and you are looking for investment ideas for the coming year, then I assume you are a beginner, which is completely okay. Everyone starts somewhere. However, if I were to start personally with the knowledge I have today, after 10 years of investing, I would choose to start with low risk. That saves potential worries, especially now that the market is high. Finally, consider your own mindset. Ask yourself how much experience and discipline you have. In my opinion, all the best investments are long-term investments. Do not believe in short-term investments. However, I do believe that there are, for example, assets that can perform very well in the short term and then need to be sold because they are overvalued. I believe all of that. Only a strategy is always long-term. Even day trading, where you buy and sell on a daily basis, is always a long-term strategy that requires very strict rules. So, if you choose day trading or long-term investing, you need a lot of discipline for both. In my opinion, long-term investing is the best choice, which is also much easier. Everything works in your favor to achieve returns. Meanwhile, with day trading, you have so many chances of failure and mistakes. Even in highly speculative markets like cryptocurrencies, the chance of failure is so great, greater than in stocks or low-risk investments. So that's what I think. Let's take a look at 7 interesting investment ideas for the coming year. Hey, it's great that you're watching Happy Investors. Thank you for that. If you go to our website, happyinvestors.nl, you will find free ebooks daily. Don't forget to download your free resources like the ETF book, which explains exactly how you can invest in ETFs. Our free calculator tool for wealth calculation is popular. You will also find some other downloads here. At happyinvestors.nl, you can find our better returns than the S&P 500 and AEX. For example, our growth stocks are currently up 125%. And that in just 1 year. Alright, let's talk about 7 of the best investments for the coming year. I will go into some in more depth, while others will be discussed more superficially. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. And don't forget, think very critically for yourself. This is purely a video, just for inspiration and what I am personally involved with, and also some lessons from the past. Now first, the first potentially best investment, of which I am sure it is the best investment, that is in yourself. That is of course a given. But education remains the best investment to continuously learn and improve yourself. If I just look at myself in the eyes of, let's say, retirees, I am a rookie, 33 years old. Only in the past, not even 10 years, because I graduated at 25, but I started investing at 23. I sold half of that in the 6 figures. I worked as a freelancer at a very high rate. I have earned a lot of money purely thanks to knowledge and always continuing to learn. I haven't taken any expensive courses. Occasionally a course, but not super expensive. I mainly read a lot of books, and that is my way of learning, reading books. Others watch videos like you who are watching this video. So keep learning continuously, then you are truly a compounding machine. That is, they always say compound interest. That is interest on interest, or return on return, or dividend on dividend. It keeps increasing more and more. That becomes a snowball. That's true. But your knowledge is an even bigger snowball, because they can never take knowledge away from you. And regardless of the situation, whether it is 2025 or 2030, you can always apply knowledge at that moment. And about next year, if you have invested a lot in your knowledge, you won't need to watch this video again. Finally, don't forget, experiences and living in the now, here and now, are also truly worth investing in. That is not an investment in terms of return, but in happiness in life. And that is something I haven't always done myself. I must say I am a very hard worker. I also do a lot of things. I go on many vacations and trips, and then I think, could I have done more? Yes, I think so. Looking back with the knowledge of today, would I have done it the same way again? Yes, then I would have invested more in simply enjoying life, because the returns and money will come if you just remain disciplined in investing over the long term. Then, that return really comes faster than you think. But you just have to keep going and keep investing monthly, and especially avoid mistakes. And you do that by starting with lower risk at least. Then a second investment that I think will be useful for 2025 is to maintain a cash reserve. And in my personal investment strategy, and I make many reviews of my own investment portfolio in stocks and ETFs, I currently have quite a bit of cash. Actually, I am kind of timing the market now, you could say, but not entirely. First of all, my investment capital remains invested in stocks and ETFs. However, at the moment, I am not buying a lot more with the money that is currently in my savings account. Why? Because first of all, what I have invested now is enough to achieve my goals. namely financially independent in I don't know how much time, because I will keep working, but I will achieve it in the short term. And secondly, I believe that the markets are currently so highly valued, overvalued, that a market correction is imminent. I don't know when. I don't know if that will be in 2025. The only thing I know is that I am increasingly selling my American stocks, particularly in technology, and transferring them to relatively low-risk stocks, also within the European market. We will all see if that be a good move. No one knows for sure. The only thing I am sure of is that if you keep some cash on hand, I think it can't hurt at this moment despite inflation. If you keep a 10 or 20% cash reserve just in case, it could turn out very well, and in any case, you should maintain an emergency reserve, an emergency fund, because you should only invest with money that you can afford to lose in the very long term. Finally, number 3 as the best investment you might start with, but then through monthly or periodic investing, is a global ETF, or an ETF portfolio with global ETFs. Why globally? But that's a bit more advanced, but American stocks are currently very high. And that is also stimulated by, first of all, the hybrid AI. And then Mr. Trump came into the picture, and those valuations have just increased and continue to rise. However, that cannot go well. Historically, it has to return to the average at some point. So the American market does seem to be getting really overvalued. And for example, the European market or Asia and China, emerging markets, have a lower valuation. Europe normally, or maybe on the higher side, but in any case not super high. And Asia, especially China, very low. So if you buy a global ETF, you have first of all a lot of diversification. You can invest passively, you don't need much knowledge and experience. You can start immediately with lower risk. And you also buy all over the world, which also includes a portion of lower valued stocks, for example from Asia. They won't all perform spectacularly, but that's what you have an ETF for, because you simply take the average. And as a beginner investor, you can't perform better than average, at least in the stock market. So that's why global ETFs are a great start for beginner investors. And when should you start then? Uncertainty and worries, inflation, overvaluation, you always have that. Important as a beginner is that you just start now with a small amount and you can gain experience from that. And that experience is also feedback to number 1, investment 1, education. You simply learn from that, and that is already worth something. Even if you are in the negative in the short term, you should be happy when you just start, because then you can buy while the market is declining, so your purchase price becomes lower. More inspiration about global ETFs can be found on our channel. There is a search on our channel for the best ETFs for beginners, and there you will find 5 very interesting global ETFs you could start with. Finally, number 4 is real estate, but specifically real estate in real estate funds, also known as REITs, which stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And the abbreviation is EIT. We have also made a separate video about REITs. They currently yield around 5 to 8% in dividends. That dividend is not super important, only they do this at a relatively acceptable valuation. Instead of technology stocks, REITs, publicly traded laundry funds are not overvalued. At least that's how it seems. Because 2022 and 2023, due to all those concerns about inflation, interest rates also went up. And due to that higher interest rate increase, which is not even very high on a historical level, real estate funds have decreased in value because the market reacts and anticipates interest rates and macroeconomic developments that you shouldn't worry too much about in the long term. However, it does happen in the short term, and that sometimes creates opportunities. I think REITs are very interesting to start with right now for 2025. And more information about that again in the video I just mentioned about potential strong REITs for the long term and providing high quality. It's great you're watching, happy investors. Thank you. If you go to our website, happyawards.nl, you'll find the free ebooks there. Don't forget your free download like the ETF book, exactly how you can invest in ETFs. Our free calculation tour or wealth calculation is very much in demand, and you'll find some other downloads here. Additionally, you can find on our website, www.dpfs.nl, our demonstrably higher returns than the S&P 500 and the AEX, with, for example, our growth stocks that are currently up 150% in just 1 year. Number 5, as a potential best investment for 2025, is one that you can actually do every year, and that is investing in your own business or a side hustle. A side hustle is a kind of mini business that you do on the side. My experiences when I stopped working at the union, I had studied management and organization, graduated, and then I went into salaried employment for 5 years. But from that moment on, actually from the union, I also started a small web shop. At that time, it was still with imports from China, from AliExpress. I was a pioneer. I had very little knowledge and experience. So the webshop was not successful, but from that came a website, and that website was quite interesting and promising. Then I started to delve deeper into it. Also, for example, in search engine optimization or SEO, SEO, and I became better and better at writing. And then I founded a third website, Happy Investors, to write about my learning process in investing and stocks. And now we are 10 years later, almost 11 years later, and Happy Investors has now become a large website with many visitors, and I have earned quite a bit from it as a side hustle, as secondary income. At one point, when it was still working alone, it amounted to about 2,000 to 3,000 euros per month. Then I also said, well, I am going to start my own business full time, and I did that for a year. It had its pros and cons, but one advantage was that my business grew quickly. I then sold half to my partner, with whom I am now building further. The sale of his share was in the 6 figures, so my side hustle suddenly became a quite lucrative source of income. And all of that by simply working alongside my full-time job. I already said I am a hard worker. I worked long 6 or 7 days a week. I don't do that anymore, but I did. And that's also what you do when you start your own business in the beginning. It's probably nothing anyway, but very small percentages are successful in the beginning. I wasn't that either, and still am not in terms of being a millionaire or anything. But success in terms of money is overrated. It's about learning. You have to see it as a learning process. That's just fun. Then you can't fail either. Making a mistake is annoying. Making a mistake twice is foolish, but you only learn from it. And that knowledge, you learn so much extra from it. But also other things like taking more responsibility. For example, you start thinking about costs, and if you work as an employee, you start thinking more like an entrepreneur. Every manager in a high position loves people who think that way. So you are likely to create more career opportunities as well. There are so many advantages to starting your own business, and you can do what you want. This channel actually has quite a few subscribers. If you don't know what Ikigai is, look it up. It's a Japanese concept. So I wouldn't focus solely on my YouTube channel. It's because of the artificial intelligence with chat. There are many online opportunities that can also develop by 2028. And the most important thing is to start with your Ikigai. If you don't know what Ikigai is, look it up. This is a Japanese concept, and it involves 4 parts. What you love, what you are good at, what you can earn money with, and whether these videos are useful for the world, I have no idea. Whether I am good at it, I leave to you. Is it useful? We will see. Does it make money? Not a lot. Do you have an established YouTube channel? But the business does. It continues to grow, and it's just really fun to do. And being fun, that's also something that adds value to your life. So I highly recommend starting your own little business, even if it's just a side hustle that you do on the side. Then you have almost no risk. And there is one big advantage to it. If you just do it alongside your full-time job, you have a full-time job, so you have income. When you start your own business, sooner or later you will encounter certain incentives that make you tend to think short-term. What you actually don't want is that. You always want to think long-term, because reputation, brand awareness, and always putting the customer first are crucial conditions for long-term success. And just like me, investing for returns. Or investing in yourself, it is also the case with starting a small business that success comes in the long term. You also see that compounding effect again. You always get that compounding effect when you consistently focus on one thing and keep doing it for a long time. And who knows, might be a successful entrepreneur and also have a lot of fun in life. However, entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and it can also cause stress and a lot of pressure here and there. But at least you tried it and learned from it. Then we have 2 specialized investments that may be interesting for 2025. We have already talked about global ETFs, and we have discussed real estate funds. What you could do as a specialized investment is to choose thematic ETFs. Thematic ETF is an ETF that focuses on one specific theme. What I would do is avoid all the hype markets at the moment, such as artificial intelligence and technology stocks, as well as American stocks. I would personally look at where the opportunities lie, but you need to have knowledge about it. An example is a thematic ETF in Chinese stocks. I have a very small position in China myself, but I have had it for quite a while. Do not have specialized knowledge in China, so it won't be all up to me. Just look for where the opportunities lie and where valuations are relatively low, but there is long-term growth in the market. And you can do that with thematic ETFs. The advantage of a thematic ETF is that you invest in at least a basket full of stocks. Very small thematic ETFs have about 25 stocks in their portfolio. Larger ones have 50 or 100. But above 100, it is actually no longer really a thematic ETF. Finally, the last is stocks. And the same applies to stocks. There are always opportunities to be found here every year. On the other hand, the cryptocurrency market is completely at the top. It can always rise further, but with stocks, it is a specific case. Where the cryptocurrency market, all cryptos are risky by definition. Stocks, you have different categories in stocks. We made a video on that, and actually we used the categories growth, dividend, and value or /value stocks. Growth stocks are always very high risk, where you invest now in a relatively fast-growing company where the future is a bit more uncertain. For 2025, I would personally be cautious with good stocks, as most good stocks already have a high valuation, but there are always good stocks with acceptable valuation to be found. For 2025, value stocks might be more interesting. In other words, relatively cheap companies, boring companies with stable income sources that you can still buy at a relatively lower price. Or the third, which is a kind of variant on value stocks, are dividend stocks. And this specific form consists of companies, strong companies that consistently pay dividends. But not only that, they also grow the dividends. This allows you to receive more and more dividends. And the nice thing is, if the stock market declines, you can continuously reinvest dividends at lower prices. Personally, I advocate for investments in high-quality growth companies, as they reinvest their money back into the business model and can therefore grow faster. This results in return on equity and return on invested capital as metrics. But sometimes, dividend stocks can be a better choice, so you can rebalance within your portfolio. However, that is an advanced strategy. Do you want inspiration? Go to our website, and there you can not only download free booklets such as stock books for our meteorology, but also, for example, invest in ETFs. But on our website, you will also find 3 categories: value, dividend, and growth stocks. All 3 for just €91 per year. You receive weekly investment insights, and every month an update on top growth stocks, top value, and top dividend stocks that score highly on certain data sources that we purchase objectively and without emotion. And yes, that costs a lot of money, but you don't have to invest in it. And for 3 consecutive years, we have demonstrably achieved higher returns than the S&P 500, so there is a case to be made for trying it out. But that's about investing in general with stocks. Believe you should invest in companies with a strong moat. A moat is another word for a competitive advantage. Companies that can defend themselves. And you see, when a downturn comes, such as a recession, those companies with a strong moat often already have relatively high profitability. Those companies often benefit from these kinds of downward cyclical movements because smaller and weaker companies struggle during such times. So they can either take over the market or they can even acquire that company. Then they have both the market and the acquired company. So, high quality companies for the long term. They are always good investments, but you need to pay a good price for them. The 7 best investments for 2025 for inspiration. The first is yourself, learning, education. In my opinion, having too high a price. This was about the 7 best investments for 2025 as inspiration. So, to summarize again, the first is yourself, learning, continuing to learn, education, and gaining experiences, living here and now as well. The second is to keep some cash on hand in case a correction occurs. You can benefit from that. The third is global ETFs, because then you can take a start with lower risk. The fourth is real estate with REITs, real estate investment trusts. Why? Because they have an acceptable valuation with relatively nice dividends, also more suitable for beginner investors with a lower risk profile. The fifth is to start your own business. It doesn't even have to cost much money, but you learn a lot from it. Number 6 is thematic ETFs. Number 7 is stocks. but more specifically dividend and value stocks. Due to that risk, always try to limit your risk and invest for the long term. All long-term investments are worth it, but you always need patience and you must keep persevering. Thank you for watching. If you have questions, let me know and see you next time.